All right, I think we are on. Cool. So this is not like my normal talk, my normal style of talk. I've got my son Ari. Ari's 9, and we started Ari coding. Well, maybe when you were like five or 6 or something.
Yep.
And every time I share something on Twitter with either him or his sister, who's 6 years old, coding, everyone's just like, "Oh, it's amazing, it's wonderful," and everyone's so happy. So we thought we'd do this lightning talk, and he's going to sort of show you the way he's been learning, and I hope that you guys can sort of take this back and teach your kids or your nieces and nephews and things like that. So Ari, why don't you start explaining what we've got here, what it is and how it works.
So this is code.org. It is it's a little game. You have to try and get BB-8s to the scrap metal. And it's just basic moving up, down, left and right.
So the cool thing about this is you can run this on like an iPad. You just go to code.org, it's totally free, there's no registration or anything. And this one's got words. Other games in here have just got arrows. So even if your kid can't read, so long as they can like put their finger on an iPad and drag it from one side to another, they can do this. So you got an objective to achieve. How are you going to do this?
So there's already one move right, and if I run this, he only moves right once, so I need to move right again to get scrap metal.
And that's like puzzle 1. You know, like from a coding perspective, it's not writing things, but it's procedural. And what you'll see as Ari sort of goes along here through the next exercises is you'll start to see things that look more and more like what we do in our day job as developers. So why don't you explain what you're going to do on this one?
So this one is, we got a repeat block. And you have to try and get the bee to the flowers and then collect the nectar. So,
and like I think one of the important things here is for kids to understand why you do this. So why would you use a repeat block? Like why don't you just drop all the blocks on?
Well, a repeat block is basically just, like instead of going turn right, turn right, turn right, you can just repeat right, like 3 times.
Right, so for like efficiency, so you don't have to have like redundant code in there.
Yep.
Okay, so why don't we try and solve this puzzle?
Okay.
You'll see also when the code runs, it highlights the block that it's actually running, so you can sort of see it stepping through bit by bit. Now, he is actually stepping through, so it's almost like you're in Visual Studio and you're like stepping through code, which is kind of cool. So he can either step through or he can just run the whole thing at once. So it's kind of cool for like teaching them about debugging principles as well. I mean, they don't call it that. Like, they're just playing a game as far as they're concerned, but this is what we recognise. All right, cool. So that sort of gives you an idea of like how it steps through levels. What do we want to do next, Ari?
So next is trying to read code. So we've got a bunch of code and we've got to look closely at the code below. How much honey will the bee make when you click run?
So do you want to ask the audience what they think? Ask them if it's
Okay.
A. So you guys have a read of the code. See if you can figure it out. And then who thinks it's going to be A? Not much love for A. B. A few on B. C. Does that mean everyone else is D? Like, I don't know. All right, what do you think, Ari? Do you want to pick one?
I think it's B.
All right, so why don't we pick that and we'll run it. We'll see what the answer is. So see how it keeps highlighting as it runs through as well? So like this is kind of cool too, because like we have to read other people's code, and this sort of starts to teach them that. Like, can they sort of programmatically read through and interpret what it's going to do? So code.org is really cool. There's a heap of different levels on there, and it's really easy to get started. Let's kind of level it up a little bit. So what are we going to do next?
So this is code combat. It's a fun game. Like, you have lots of, like, you can unlock cool items. There's lots of levels and you learn lots of different things. The first level,
Do you want to just unmute that too, because it sounds really, really cool, and then show some of the things you learn.
So, over here you will learn basic syntax.
Can't miss me.
And this is your inventory. So, your goal is to avoid the spikes and collect the gems.
Do you even lift?
Grab the treasure.
You'll see also it says
these
programming
methods.
language Python. So when you start getting
Type
into
your
code
code on
combat,
the
you can do
right.
stuff in Python, you can do stuff in JavaScript, and now it starts to look more and more like code, and it introduces concepts that we'd be very familiar with. So, Ari, why don't you start solving this and tell us what sort of coding constructs you're using when you do this?
So, in here you have to...
It's like IntelliSense, right?
Yeah, like a
Just
bell.
writes it for you.
You have to write it.
Now, what's move down and move right? What code constructs are these?
Methods.
Right, cool. So now we've got like a little bit of object orientation. We've got methods on this hero object. What else are we going to do?
Let's see.
Iba Shaba Nani.
Sweet, and that's like the first step, but this is like super, super, super basic. Code Combat as well is free. I think there's some commercial plans as well, but we haven't done anything on there yet that we've actually needed to pay money for. Okay, where do we go from here?
So this is another level. And we're going to do the extravaganza. So here you'll learn arguments, basic syntax, if statements, variables, and while loops.
Of course. Code Combat.
So your goal is to defeat the ogres, defend against the ogres using an if statement to check if there's an ogre nearby. Do not attack if there is no munchkin around. You'll confuse the hero.
So can you explain, let's sort of start from the top, like what's happening on line 3?
Line 3, there's a while true.
And what's it going to do?
It's going to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Okay. Now line 4, explain it like again, like the coding construct. So what is enemy on line 4?
A variable.
Oh, very good. And then what do we set the variable as?
A find nearest enemy.
Okay, and then find nearest enemy, we've already covered this as a method. So we're actually executing a method, we're getting the value back from that, assigning it to a variable. What are you going to do next?
So I'm going to type if there is an enemy I want my hero to attack.
And then when you pass enemy that way, what does that make it?
An argument.
Right, cool. So we've got arguments on methods and we're passing variables in it. And see all the way, again, like these constructs that we know start to become part of the game. So what's it going to do? Like before we run it, given all this is in a while true loop, what's going to happen as you run this?
It's gonna, if the hero finds an enemy, it'll keep attacking until all the enemies are dead.
Sweet, let's run it.
Vucody dance.
And obviously it's like really
Business and
heavily
serve.
gamified, but it's stuff the kids have fun playing with. And what's sort of interesting, particularly on code.org, regardless of what it is your kid likes, there's some sort of a game there. So my daughter likes the Frozen game. Like she wants to play Frozen, she can move Elsa around the map. There's Minecraft ones and obviously Star Wars ones and things like that. So I kind of like the idea that kids can find something that they like in general and then apply it to a coding construct. And he's basically just going to keep slaying enemies because that's literally what the code does. It does start to get a bit repetitive after a bit. Hey, Ari, why don't you close this one, and then we'll... So this is sort of like level 2, if you like, and then we'll show everyone what you're doing now. So can you explain what this is?
This is my website.
And this is basically, like, for those of you who are around in the 90s, this is like every website in the 90s. We're working on finding a spinning globe somewhere, like a GIF. So how have you been writing the website?
I've been writing it in Visual Studio Code.
Okay, cool. And why don't you, let's go to Visual Studio Code and we'll just have a look at what you're writing. So do you want to explain a little bit about what you're creating here?
So, this is basically like, this is a hyperlink. It takes you to another page.
The reason why I started doing this is only sort of a few months ago, and it's just a local website. It's not published anywhere. I don't know if it would get a lot of traffic anyway, if I'm honest. But the reason we started doing this is he got invited to do like a day of code at another school. So different kids in his class, you know, some of them got to go and do a day like maths or science or something. He got to code. And the school said, oh, he's going to learn web development. And I'm like, you know, it's going to be like draggy, droppy online stuff. And he came home with like pages and pages of handwritten HTML tags. I was like, sweet, this is cool. So it's funny because like I think about the way I learned HTML in 1995, and I learned from HTML for Dummies, like literally for Dummies book. Oh, this keeps doing this, it's so weird. Again. So it was just really interesting to look at the way I learned HTML like 24 years ago, and it's the same as the way he learns now. It's basically the same stuff. So he's now going through learning how to sort of construct basic pages. We've been speaking about ordered lists and list items and things like that, and learning the semantic intent. And again, the cool thing here is like he likes superheroes and Marvel comics and things like that. So if we can take that and that becomes the vehicle by which he learns to code, well, great, I'm fine with that. So that's kind of all we wanted to run through. I think we've got about up to 3 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions for Ari or myself? Well, that was easy. Oh, yeah.
Ari, so sorry. Ari, great talk, by the way. Just wondered, so my daughter's been using a lot of Scratch, which is kind of like code.org.
Yeah.
Have you, what things do you now want to build, now that you've kind of got the basics?
Now I kind of want to keep working on my website, like keep, like putting things, like doing separate pages for each thing.
That's a different thing. So there's another question up the front.
If you are really honest, do you really like to code, or do you that wants you to code?
Oh boy.
It's a bit of both.
What was the answer?
It's a bit of both.
I think the point for honest are really high.
How much time do you spend daily?
Well, I worked on each little bit every day, so maybe
Maybe half an hour? Maybe?
I wish.
But I like this response. Like, I like the response of, I wish I could do more of this. And I was just chatting before the talk. When my 6-year-old daughter comes to me, she sees coding as a privilege, and she comes up and she says, "Daddy, can I please do some coding today?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's so nice." Yes, of course you can. And it's, you know, I certainly haven't pushed them. I just give them the opportunity to do it, and that they just seem to gravitate towards it when the opportunity presents itself. One more?
Do you think teaching kids to code will help them sort of improve their understanding of like online security and protect themselves on things like social media?
So just for everyone in the back, it was a good question. It was like, do I think teaching the code will help them better understand like security and online and social media and things? Look, I think it will start to get them more exposure to that. There's probably a whole other talk on how much drama it is to actually get kids gradually into things like social media I mean, really good example. He wanted to be able to like favorite and like YouTube videos, which seems like a good idea. So what do you need for that? Well, you need to have a YouTube account, a Google account. You can't have a Google account unless you're 13. So you fake the age. Now he's seeing freaky clowns with balloons every time he goes and watches YouTube. So there's like this slippery slope of problems just trying to get kids online. But at least something like this, it's like we're doing it together. There's parental supervision. And I think that that will help with those things. Maybe do a follow-up 10 years from now and see if it worked or not. All right, I think we're out of time. Thanks, guys.